the month, September. The year is almost coming to an end, but I know not just Kenyans, but the world over, a lot to say about the year 2020. COVID-19 has been with us for a couple of months in Kenya. 6 months. The government yesterday did defend its measures and protocols in dealing with this pandemic. The president did outline a number of issues which will be handled in the next couple of days. Among them, the publishing of tenders awarded by the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority. Those details will be coming to you a little bit later on, with the steps taken so far with regards to that, and so much more. But first, let us take a look at the reporter's diary. COVID-19 has brought about a number of things. There are innovations which we have seen over the last couple of months, Kenyans trying to get by. Of course, others have been working home, and with that, they have come up with amazing things. And we did see some innovations before COVID, right now being put into use. Kenyans enterprising and making life easy. In studio with me this morning is Jacob Kioko, founder of Dichotomous Universal Growth Web Innovation, or DUGWI. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. You have a couple of nice ideas. There are so many things to talk about. We have the economic downturn, which has been brought about by COVID-19 pandemic. Even before that, Kenyans were reeling from the effects of inflation as well. How do we finance devolution? Counties have been on the spotlight with this. Some say that they have been badly exposed by the pandemic. There is also corruption, which is with us. Kabasa is making headlines right now, as well as businesses trying to stay afloat. We have seen others close. Hotels have been finding it very, very difficult to operate. Others have closed entirely and probably will need to restructure. But first things first, who is Jacob Kioko?
No, my name is Jacob Kioko. I was born and reared in Machakos. Later, boundaries changed, and I happened to find myself in Makueni. But right now, I reside at Kitengela, Kajiado County. I am a businessman and also an innovator, as we have just said. I'm British trained. The Institute of Marketing, and that is where I draw my vigor to develop the DUGWI innovation from. An innovation which I believe is going to solve our problems. The Dichotomous Universal Growth Web Innovation was born of intermarriage between society and business. Whereas business is profit-driven, society is value-driven. The two parties, therefore, the relationship between the two is dichotomous. That is, they are headed in opposite directions. The innovation is about the bridging of that gap of dichotomy between society and business and instilling congruency in it so that both parties benefit equitably.
All right. We have seen a number of innovations coming up, and one of them, not really new, but Kenyans do not know that there's a lot that you can do. And this, we have seen it from the KICD. KBC has been carrying out classes on TV and on radio. It used to be there in the 90s, but not so many knew that this could really happen, because we have seen the feedback, Kenyans giving their thoughts on this. It is one of the simplest innovations, just leveraging on what we already have. How different is your innovation? You told me about points and what Kenyans can earn when they go to buy a product, let's say, for example, this pen.
Yeah, the Duke innovation is not reinventing the wheel. It is something that we have heard from time immemorial. Sales promotion. Of the 7 P's of marketing, and by the way, I'm a marketer, so
Right.
much of what is going to come in my conversation will have a touch on marketing. Of the 7 P's of marketing, sales promotion is the only one which the company has complete control on. It's the only one that can be withdrawn by the company at will, and it may not make too much difference. It has 5 limitations. It is too short-lived to give a permanent company image. It is too short-lived to give a permanent market share. It is too short-lived to cultivate inter-trade relations. Now, those are some of the main ones. The other one is after the sales period, sales promotion period, there is always a sales dip. And both parties benefit from sales promotion during the promotion period only. Now, the Duke innovation makes those 5 sales promotion weaknesses the pillars of business. By inducing the customer to continue buying without minding whether or not there is a sales promotion going on at any one given time, the company, not a supermarket as you had suggested, the retainer incentives will come from the company that manufactures the product. The idea being that there will be more product usage when the company affords its customers a small fraction of the sales that a company makes in form of bonga points, the equivalent of bonga points. In our case, it is retainer incentives. And instead of redeeming your retainer incentives, as is the common practice, in this case, it will be, you'll be issued with a share certificate. And all the retainer incentives throughout the country will be invested in a pool which will then finance job-creating business corporations.
All right.
At the end of the trading period, for these job-creating business corporations, every shareholder is going to be paid dividends. And part of the profits made by these business corporations will go to support social causes.
So let's crunch a couple of things here. You've talked about incentives, points. Right now, if you go to a supermarket and you buy commodities, let's say, for example, worth 100 shillings, you'd probably get 1 point. If you buy commodities worth 1,000 shillings, you get 10 points, or even more, depending on the chain. But instead of these points being issued by the supermarkets, they be issued by the manufacturers.
Yes.
All right. Now that we understand that, the products that, of course, Kenyans will always consume.
Yes.
And as a manufacturer, I don't need to feel pressured to keep these consumers, because I know at the end of the day, they will still need to come back for more product. How do you make it resonate with these manufacturers? Let's say, for example, soap, for example. This is something that we will always use. Like right now, it's important to wash your hands. It's important to sanitize.
Yeah. The company will profit in several ways. There will be more product usage as the consumer goes for this additional augmented benefit. The manufacturer is going to have a broad customer base.
Different from probably what they have now?
Absolutely. Very different, because sales promotions are geared at achieving a broader customer base, but being temporarily all through up to this point, the company has not been benefiting. Companies have not been benefiting in full.
Mm-hmm.
So this is now going to be a permanent trend, because the company is going to benefit immensely because it has a broad customer base and a permanent capture market.
Okay. So what happens to the gap created when you snatch this incentive from supermarkets? Because I doubt whether it's going to be two-layered. Manufacturers providing the incentives and supermarkets also providing the incentives. How do you bridge this gap?
The issue is we are operating at the higher level, not at the lower level.
So you get rid of the ones being run by the supermarkets?
Absolutely not. Let supermarkets, the intention of the supermarkets is to retain their clientele.
Okay.
They may continue doing that. We have absolutely no quarrel with that. But above there, the manufacturer, who is going to benefit immensely, because the supermarket is actually going to sell more, because the incentive being given to the customer by the manufacturer will make them go more in the supermarket.
Okay.
And there is no quarrel. They may have their thing their way without affecting the upper layer of promotion.
All right.
So the company benefits immensely. I've just said two, but there are more than two. A broad customer base, a permanent capture market, and equipping of markets with purchasing power. So there will be more product usage, new product usage, new product users in the existing market without re-engineering the product and without an additional cost.
Okay. So let's now go broad with this. Let's take, for example, product A. The manufacturer is giving incentives. I buy product A probably a couple of times, probably 100 times or even 1,000 times.
Yes.
And I have points.
Yes.
I want to believe that this incentive comes in form of points.
Yes.
All right. So I have 1,000 points.
Yes.
What do I do with this? You talked about creating a scheme. Was it
a pool?
A pool.
Yeah.
Now, my 1,000 points, what is it going to do for me, and what is it going to do to the manufacturer or for the manufacturer, besides the creation of a bigger customer base and the retention of the customers or consumers that this company already has?
It's going to equip the domestic economy with purchasing power. So this is part of growth of the national economy from the company, the manufacturer.
All right.
Besides their own personal benefit, they are going to grow the national economy, because everybody is now going to be equipped with purchasing power.
All right. One point. How much is it worth in terms of currency? Because for us to talk about economic development, buying and selling, at some point you have to construct or transform this into a currency.
Yes.
How much is 1 point worth in this scenario?
No,
we don't look at it that way.
Yeah, we cannot discuss that here that way,
right.
Because we are going to induce as many manufacturers as is possible into the arrangement, and every manufacturer will have his own way of offering the retainer incentives. If, like, I'm a bread manufacturer,
yes,
and I say for every bread that you buy, say at 45 shillings, I will afford whoever buys 50 cents, for example.
Yes, now you're being more clear.
Yeah.
Now you're being more clear.
Yes.
So you have a pool.
Yes.
You're a pool, and you, is it just one pool, or we have all these manufacturers coming up with their incentives and bringing it together in one pool, or we are going to group them?
No. It's going to be a single thing because this is calculated at helping the national economy.
Okay. So make us understand how that now is going to work.
Well, every product will have a serial number. Products from those manufacturers who will join us will have a serial number on the package of the product.
All right.
So when you purchase, you enter that serial number on your cell phone. So at the central database, it will indicate so-and-so has bought a loaf of bread, for example, and if one purchase is 50 cents, then he has a retainer incentive of 50 cents. And that keeps building as you continue purchasing. You have a single share certificate where all purchases you make, you enter the serial numbers on your cell phone, and your share certificate continues growing.
What's the difference between this and tax relief?
This is strictly being handled by the private sector, not the government, and it is supposed to supplement government effort.
All right. So let's say for instance, in 6 months,
yes,
this pool happens to have raised $1 billion shillings.
Yes.
How is this money going to be appropriated?
Now, jointly with the central government, the national government.
Now you bring in the government.
It must come on board,
okay,
because it must know what is happening in every section. So like in my home place, Kitengela, we need a tannery, for example. We have too many cows. We need a tannery. So at the board level, which board is going to be manned by 9 Kenyans, 8 from each one of the former 8 provinces, with 1 Kenyan being the coordinator with the central government. So these 8 Kenyans will make a decision. In this pool, we have 10 billion. What projects do we need at what parts of the country? So it is going to be set up, and the jobs generated by that particular project will be shared equitably among the 44 tribes. This project offers 500 jobs. Those 500 jobs are going to be shared equitably among the 44 tribes, so that 2 things will happen here. Nobody will feel left out, and tribalism is going to be killed permanently.
Someone would argue that probably instead of having this, then these companies would roll out corporate social responsibility programs instead of having these incentives in place, which, as you are putting it, is going to help the society. It's going to help a community. Let's say, for example, in Kitengela, it's going to build a tannery. Why not just come together as companies and agree and donate money to construct this tannery, for example?
From the day Adam was put on the Garden of Eden, no business enterprise has ever figured the corporate responsibility to be channeled into a pool which is going to be spread overboard. Every company has its own way of looking at it, and there's no way you can get everybody to think like you do. For that reason, the only solution is to let every company operate as they have always done. But then you come up with this this house, this structure, which will house everybody, and not only help the company itself, but also help in social support. We have a problem with tribalism. It has been said. Now, there is no miracle there's nothing which has not been done to kill off that problem. It is still with us. So the only solution is to make sure every Kenyan is a participant in this effort by inducing every Kenyan to partake in this. It is not a cost to anybody. Because you have purchased from the time you were a child up to today without getting the augmented benefit. Now, this is coming at this hour. It's a new idea. Otherwise, it would have been there right from the beginning. The augmented benefit that you are going to get in the name of a retainer incentive is what is going to make the difference. So, the companies will not only make more money, but they will also support government effort in eradication of poverty, because with everybody being empowered, poverty will be eradicated. Part of the profits made by these business corporations will go toward financing social causes. For example, we have noticed in the COVID-19 era that we are heavily dependent on foreign aid, including drugs. We are about 50 million Kenyans. If every Kenyan were afforded a shilling a day per product purchased, do your calculations, how much money we can raise through this innovation. And if that money were put on research, we would be there. Development of drugs, we would be there. There is the real issue now of social distancing, which is a real challenge in the Ministry of Education operations. It is here with us, and we need money to expand. Now, the government cannot do everything.
All right. So use this innovation to make the education situation better. How would you do it?
I think it's very simple. We have 50 million shillings, for example, in this account. And the Minister of Education says, we need, in the immediate term, we need, say, 40 million. It will be very simple. We will buy bonds, government bonds, to enable the state to settle the problem, and as soon as we are ready, it should be paid back so that we can have a fish institution, a fish factory in Kisumu, a tannery at the river, whatever it is, that the 8 Kenyans coming from the former 8 provinces, the decision they will make, where we need immediate action. So, where this innovation in force today, the government will not face the difficulty it is facing today. And this will also not only put the economy of the country firmly into the ordinary Kenyan hands, it is also going to reduce dependence on foreign aid. We will have the money to finance that which the government cannot finance immediately from the private sector.
How long have you had this idea, and who have you approached with it? And what has been the outcome?
I developed this idea over a period of 16 years and patented it in year 2010. Over the last 10 years, I have done all that is humanly possible for the government to come on board without any success. Probably.
Who have you approached in government?
I have approached everybody. Like in 2016, on the 7th of November, I took a billboard measuring 20 by 30 feet and assisted by another 8 men with a school bus coming after us so that we don't get crushed from behind. We carried that billboard shoulder high from the bomb blast roundabout and branched into Harambee Avenue, and I had 4 letters. One to His Excellency the President.
Was it delivered?
I hand-delivered it.
To the President himself?
I delivered it to the office and it was stamped.
Was there a response?
No response.
The second letter?
To the Deputy President.
Which you delivered personally?
Hand-delivered.
Was there a response?
No.
And the third one? The third one?
To the AG.
State Law Office.
State Law Office.
You personally delivered?
Yes.
Was there a response to that?
There was some response to that.
What kind of response?
Because then it was Honorable Githu Muigai. And he said, because there before, I had written letters to all those offices except the office of the President. He said, yes, I've seen your communication. But then you should address your communication not to the State Law Office, but the Ministry of Trade and Industrialization, under which your innovation falls.
Okay. And
he advised, quote, I don't remember the articles in the Constitution, but I think it's 119, 113, draft a petition, bring it to me, and the State Law Office is going to take it up from there. I did that. When I checked with him, after 2 weeks, the secretary said he received your document and made a note on it. And what was the note? Noted. What does that mean? No further action. So I came to a complete halt. Because according to me, those are the 4 highest offices in the land. With no response, I then reverted to media houses to try and make noises at the media houses to show Kenyans that there is a solution to some of the problems that we are faced with, and it's at our fingertips if only we could get the necessary political goodwill. The magnitude of impact of this innovation on the national economy and society warrants that there must be political goodwill.
Right. Let me take you back to where I was asking you about the points and how much one is worth. Before you go nationally with the project, you must try it somewhere and see how it works out. Have you subjected this innovation to some kind of test? Let's say, for example, in Kitengela where you live, how many companies are there? How are we going to make this practical? Because I believe that if you develop a concept and you implement it probably in a small scale, that perhaps should provide you with enough statistics to probably escalate it to the next level. Has your innovation gone through all this?
Well, this innovation was officially launched on the 31st of May 2013, and it was launched at Kitengela, to be exact, Kaka House.
Mm-hmm.
And before it was launched, I had set up a cake manufacturing institution, farm really, if you want to call it so, but it was a small thing using partly kitchen burners, gas burners, to bake cakes, and whatever cake an individual bought was assured of getting an incentive. But then I struck a problem. The house where the bakery was had encroached onto the road, and it was demolished. That killed off my effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it is there, and as even before doing that, as the matter is at the moment, for example, we had, I don't know whether I'm allowed to mention names, but there is a company, let me not mention names, there is a company which at maybe the height of the pandemic was offering whatever points you may have with us, you could purchase items against them.
Because looking at it, I think probably it would work better if you involved the companies for your trials, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Because you have to convince these companies to invest into this idea before going large scale with it. Probably that's one of the reasons as to why you never got any response from the state law office. Have you thought of it that way?
No, I haven't, because this is on my own. I may not have the influence. On my own, I figured that we should start, say, like the government financing a project in Nairobi, another one in all the counties. Yeah? That is what actually I was looking for. Can the government come on board and have a unga milling plant in Kajiado, in all the provinces? Yeah? Not the provinces, all the counties, starting with one or two, so that market forces would induce other players to come on board, so that we have something substantial. The retainer incentives are so minimal that if we start on a very small scale, there is no impact. Like if it's 10 cents, a point is worth 10 cents or 20 cents, it will be so minimal that it will have no impact on the economy of the country. So the key thing here is, because this is something which has gone on from time immemorial, only that nobody has come up with something to pull all these together to help not only the companies, but also the public and generally the economy of the country.
All right. Is this voluntary for these companies, or if you involve the government, it becomes policy?
Absolutely
and now it's
not.
a must?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is voluntary 100%. Because they will benefit immensely. Those who may not want to join us are not coerced. But the benefit of those who are going to join us up are known. If sales promotions, and all companies know sales promotions, are of benefit to them, temporarily as they are, what will happen if they are continuous? Without a corresponding cost, without re-engineering the product. And also, this being a sales cost, a marketing cost, it is not taxable.
So how do companies or manufacturers cushion themselves against, let's say, for example, a drop in demand for a product, for example?
Well, this is precisely what this innovation is supposed to cushion.
Because normally, in any market, it is normal for demand for a product to drop.
Yes.
So one would argue that probably this is a hard sell. How would you respond to that?
I think all companies know when demand goes down, any product, one of the things, the solutions to that problem is to induce more sales. More sales usually through sales promotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what this innovation is calculated at solving.
All right. So let's connect it to financing of devolution.
Yes.
How would it work?
Now, there are 2 or 3 things that I would want to say about devolution. According to the Dugu innovation, Kenya adopted devolution without actually understanding it. It's a new concept.
It was there in something similar to it. I was not born then yet, but Majimbo was there.
Yes.
In the early 60s.
True, I agree. But this was fixed to politics.
Mm-hmm.
It was not so much fixed on the economy, because people looked at it very narrowly at that time, and that is why it was dropped. Now, we borrowed very heavily from the Americans, maybe, and South Africans, maybe because these are the countries which are heavily quoted as having succeeded
Yes.
in devolution. Now, devolution is not a blanket concept. Different countries adopt, sometimes develop their own versions. And all versions of devolution are hinged on the pre-devolution state of that country, especially social state.
Mm-hmm.
The Americans succeeded in devolution because they are all newcomers. For example, in the US, they all came from Europe, went to the US, and on day one,
Mm-hmm.
they agreed on how they are going to operate their economy. A devolved model of government. No area was ignored. Hence, it succeeded. In South Africa, a similar situation arose, because when the white men went to South Africa, they had no intention of going back to where they had come from. So their economic setup was fairly uniform, all regions. Apart from the black man's area, and it was not that expansive, they had made sure that the blacks are, they were afforded very little land. So generally, in South Africa, a very similar situation happened like it happened in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is our position? Colonization, according to the Dugu innovation, is an extension of slavery, because it was initiated and perpetuated by the same people, and the goal was one and the same: exploit the African to develop their countries. So on coming to Kenya, they were interested only in those geographical parts of the country which, according to them, promised the highest economic potential. So they developed a lopsided economic policy. After they were through with that, they went back. Now, that lopsided colonial economic policy, beneath it was an African lopsided economic policy. When it surfaced at the inception of nationhood, it became our core national problem, societal economic imbalances.
So you're still trying to give a background to how Dugui can help finance devolution.
Exactly.
All right. So how unique is our devolution from what you have mentioned, the US and South Africa, which is organized in provinces?
Yes, it's unique. Our devolution is unique because we went by a system which was predetermined for us. We did not determine it ourselves. But since we are there and we cannot go back.
The committee of experts that sat at Delta House for a couple of months drawing the Constitution would argue otherwise, that they looked at what we have and drew a document that Kenyans resonated with, even though that document is probably subject to debate right now.
Well, it is subject to debate because, unlike the heated debates that we have seen in the Houses of Parliament, all that was as a result of adopting a system which had been predetermined by other people, and we embraced it. And my point is, we should not go back. We cannot roll back on devolution. We can only go forward. And the only way of going forward on devolution is to adopt the Dugui innovation. One, devolution does not create wealth.
How would you argue that?
It can only seek to distribute that which already exists.
Let's say I join up with a couple of friends of mine, probably the same age or even older. We start a company and get in touch with the county government. I come from Homa Bay. We get in touch with the county government and tell them that this is what we do. And we apply a couple of tenders. From zero, we apply for these tenders and get a couple of responses. We qualify and probably get 2. Does that, indicate that, doesn't it indicate that probably we are creating wealth? Or is it that my understanding of wealth is skewed?
You may be creating wealth, but has it ever been created that way? Here is a new idea on creation of wealth, which induces the individual to be a partaker in a system which is going to benefit the individual personally and all of us collectively. If we depended on the county governments, and by the way, the county governments are desperately in need of money. So we cannot go that way, because we must empower the counties to be able to exploit their economic potential so that they can finance their entire recurrent expenditure budgets without looking on the national government to finance them.
We have a situation where revenue collection in the counties is a very big problem. How are we going to achieve this? How are we going to convince these counties to buy into this idea when they cannot attain or achieve the target set by the Commission on Revenue Allocation? How are we going to convince these counties that I know that you have a target of 100 million, but you collect just 10. But here is an idea that is going to give you more money. Does it mean jumping to your idea and abandoning what they ought to do,
Absolutely
which is legally provided?
Absolutely not. This is strictly a business. The Dugu innovation is strictly a business. And the most it can do is to develop business cooperations through which the counties will collect more taxes, as is the usual practice, so that they may raise more funds through their own taxes, as is allowed by law, and so that they may stop depending wholly on the national government. So that if there is gold in your home place or my home place, then the county government can, of course, going through all the paces, can start gold mining there and get its taxes, as is the usual practice, and then finance their recurrent expenditure budgets from their own local resources without depending on the national government, so that will relieve the national government.
I get that, but the idea of devolution is getting the national government to give counties their rightful share. Right now, it is 15%, is it 10% of 10% right now that is going to the counties. We have seen politicians, this includes MPs, governors themselves, and even senators, clamor for the BBI, even though some are not for it. But one of the proposals there is to upscale it from the current percentage to probably 35%. Which one is more attractive? Getting 35% from the national government or adopting Dugwi? Which one is more assured?
Adopting Dugwi is a lot better, because with, especially right now, with the economic downturn, and it's all over the world, don't talk about 15%. Say 90% going to the counties. 90% of what? When the national economy is going down and there's nothing anybody can do about it, it's global. So you may fight for 50. We may fight for whatever it is that governors and our leaders may want to fight for. But of what? When the national economy is going down, of what? In fact, it may be 50% of a GDP which has gone down by 40% or more. You are not getting anywhere. So the issue is to grow the national economy. I emphasize, to grow the national economy to a level in which we can sustain our own operations. And it is possible.
Whatever discussions we have right now, it has to be anchored, by the law.
Yes.
And we have a constitution that is currently governing this country. What you're proposing, it sounds like a suggestion. One that the government or the county governments can choose to implement or choose otherwise. But if we let that go slightly, we'll come back to it. You talk about Dugwi eradicating corruption.
Yes.
You talked about the pool.
Yes.
How is this pool going to be, how is it going to be free of graft? We know how bad the situation is in the country.
Well, the Dugwi innovation envisages the development of a curriculum to train Kenyans on the innovation, starting from the peak, that is university level, and I tell you why. These are the managers of the economy who are going out of their classrooms immediately. The idea being, we will grow the national economy to a level in which it will be a lot more profitable to amass personal wealth legally than it is to steal, graft, corruption. Now, that is only one army, because the fight against corruption, according to the Dugu Innovation, is comprised of 3 armies and 5 battlegrounds. Up to this point, we have depended wholly on the law to fight corruption, and the law has not succeeded. One of the mistakes we have made up to this point is the law should be assisted by other professions to address the corruption problem. One of them, I have just said, growing the national economy to a level in which it will be a lot better to amass personal wealth legally than it will be to amass personal wealth illegally.
What happens to the money that has already been stolen? How do you recover it?
Let me finish up first. So we need the law to be there as one of the armies to block and stop corruption from the front, and with the empowered public to resist corruption from the rear. And at the top, the new crop of managers of the economy trained on the Dugu Innovation to sit at the apex. Then in between, religion will also come into force, the third army.
What role is religion going to play?
Religion is going to play a very critical role because it addresses the innermost faculty of man, the soul. At the top, the cream of management says no. At the front, the law says, no, I'm not going to let you go past me. At the rear, the public, who have now been empowered, will say no, because the money that I steal is no longer state money. It is my money. So I'm not going to let you steal my money. And since these are all Kenyans, they will be told into their faces, stop this because it's wrong. Religion will appeal to the innermost soul, faculty of man, that is the soul, and bless the righteous so heavily that their storehouses will have no further room to take blessings, wealth, and at the same time curse with fire and brimstone those who do not do what is right. Finally, the third army would be the biggest, the most effective weapon that corruption perpetrators have is capital ownership. Through the Dugu Innovation, with every member of the community, the society, being empowered, that will make capital ownership a basic social right. It's your right to own capital because you are an investor in this project in Kiambu, in Kisumu, in Machakos, wherever it is. You are a capital owner. And this is the weapon which perpetrators of corruption have always held. So if capital ownership is made a basic social right, then it will undermine corruption perpetrators from the belly. So it will be at the top, corruption-free directors, managers. At the rear, the public saying no. At the front, the law saying you cannot go past here. In the middle, there's going to be confusion. Those who may want to protect their names and now they have now changed. We can make much more money legally than it is to make this money, and we suffer all the curses. So there is going to be confusion and frustration among the perpetrators, with some of them saying no, others say we must go on. And that confusion is going to be planted by religion. Those who may be touched and say no, I can make more money legally than I can corruptly, there will be that confusion. Among them, not in society. Among those who steal, they don't steal in the open. Wherever it is that they hide to steal, somebody will say no. And then, because capital ownership is no longer their reserve, because you are not going to give me 200 shillings to vote for the wrong person, for example, when I can raise the 200 shillings on my own. So this boat of corruption is going to be attacked from 5 points by 3 armies. So the boat is going to be sunk when capital ownership is made a basic social right and undermines their strength. It will sink.
All right. We're taking a short break, but what I would want to hear, and I asked you earlier, but you asked me to let you finish, how you're going to regain what has already been lost. We have the multi-agency team that is working behind the scenes to ensure that Kenyans recover what has been stolen. So we'll get to that, and we'll talk about the implementation of this, considering that you have sent your letters to the president, you have sent your letter to the state law office, no response yet, what you're planning to do. I know that an innovation that has taken 16 years to develop cannot just go to waste, so we'll get into that. We are taking a very short break. We'll be back. A news check will continue shortly.
Say all kind of things about you.
We them on, just shake up. Need to mush you and done to mush you. When your booty got show me now.
Baby, one time, bossy baby, give me 2 times. Full 180, crazy.
Let's go. Ha. I needed some with some bop in.
Mamacita, where you at? I've been trying to reach you.
Choro, 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 choro. Get the party more.
Katoto shepu awe, ayawe, ayawe.
Tekenya katoto, kamini tekenya, tekenya. tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Boss lady, unajua ni aje? Ni itabidi uhamuke. Jimmy, unajua nilisho. But I'm proud of you. Nikao karibu kwa mwenda.
Basi yako.
Leo njala tushie memorial. Basi unaweza mcheki kesho.
Ndani ofe.
Achana na basi, unahitajika memorial.
Kwa njia yangu. Saimo, usifanye nikusongeshe.
Gear up and maintain a healthy, fit and active lifestyle right there at home by keeping up with Gear Up on Channel 1, 5:30 to 6 a.m. Monday to Saturday. Gear up every day for every moment, and remember to stay home and keep safe.
Good morning to you. If you're just joining us, this is News Check, and the discussion this morning is innovation. And I have been talking to one Jacob Kioko, a very complex concept. But before we get into that, the Orange Democratic Movement is supposed to meet MCAs from Migori County. Of course, the agenda of that meeting is still not clear, but we know what has been going on in Migori County. The governor faced the court, and he is currently out on bail, but the MCAs were invited to a meeting in Nairobi to discuss perhaps issues or the matters pertaining to the management of Migori County, because ODM forms the majority of members of that particular county assembly. Details of that will be made available to you in a couple of hours, perhaps, when we have a grip of the agenda of that particular meeting. Jacob Kioko is still with me. We were talking about Dugwi, this innovation that you believe has the capacity to change the lives of Kenyans and make us rich and abandon our corrupt ways. I want to know how this innovation is going to help us recover what has already been stolen, because it has been proven that it is possible to recover what has already been stolen. People must take responsibility for their actions. If at all their assets which they changed or bought using illegal money, that particular asset or assets can be recovered by the government. We have seen it happen before. So how is this innovation going to help us to that end?
There is an area to be played by every army, and I say there are three armies.
Yes.
The law must play its role by recovering that which has already been stolen.
Mm-hmm.
Religion is going to play a critical role here. If the two are merged, the effort of religion and the law, like what we have been treated to of late, I'm sure if some of the governors, for example, were addressed right, deep to their conscience, the example of the short man, Zacchaeus, can be repeated. Zacchaeus was touched by religion to the core of his heart, and he said, now and forth, I'm not going to steal anymore. So the combined effort of religion and the law will have a big impact in the recovery of that which has been stolen. Now, the Dugu innovation also has a role to play here, because there is assurance of personal amassing of wealth.
I know you're trying to explain, but it sounds like a fresh start. That's how it sounds.
It is a fresh
forget
start.
the past and let's start afresh. Let's build our wealth legally and forget about what has been happening previously. Let bygones be bygones. We have a new system here. Let us work with it.
Absolutely not. Zacchaeus, the short man, said, I am going to refund that which I had stolen 4 times. A similar situation should be nurtured, because the law is going to be very severe with those who are proven as having misappropriated public funds. Let the law be very severe on them, and let religion also come in force and tell those who are guilty, you should not have gone this way, but you did. Now, for you to come back to what we used you to know you to be, give back. And the example of Zacchaeus, I think, can touch any human heart.
For those who read the Bible.
Even those who don't, because the law is going to be very severe on them. Once the law is very severe, then one has no choice but to go down a bit. At that time, religion should come in force, and religion also has its own severity. I've just said, cars with fire and brimstone. My wife may not be accepted in the mama chamas, in their chamas. Why? We all know that the money that you contribute here is stolen money. So we may not accept you. I go to the petrol station with my big car, and the petrol attendant, the station attendant, tells me, Kyoko, how much petrol do you need? Whatever it is that I may need. Pay me in advance. Because we all know that you have done to this country. I don't know how much resistance anybody on earth can have with the law being so severe, with religion inducing and also threatening. It's actually not a threat, punishing with fire and brimstone, and the public also coming on board. As long as I have been proven to have stolen, then everybody has the freedom of telling me off, pay me in advance, otherwise you may as well steal from me, because that is your normal way of life.
Okay. Now that you have tried getting out there to the government and no response has been forthcoming, what do you intend to do?
Well, my intention is simple, and I have already made it officially that what I need is political goodwill, which has not been forthcoming for the last 26 years. So I decided to launch my candidature for the presidential race in the general elections slated for year 2022. Because this is something of immense benefit to this country, and by extension, the entire human race. It cannot, I mean, what excuse would I have to take it with me to my grave when it can be of so much benefit to the world? What will I tell my creator? He gave me this talent, and I buried it. I don't think I can face him on that ground. So I have already pronounced my intention to run for the presidency in order to get the required political goodwill to roll out this innovation to benefit this nation and to benefit humanity.
So the race is solely on Dugwi, or there are other agendas that you want to implement?
If the national economy is fixed, there is no corruption, there is equitable distribution of wealth, there is business growth, there is total social integration, as I have just explained to you, we are about through. Those are the main social problems, socio-economic problems that we have faced all through. So if I could get that done, then my role will be major in steering the country right. Now that, in addition, I do not have any tribal backing, and I will not let that happen.
But that has been the history of our politics.
That is precisely what I am resisting.
So how are you going to do things differently? And we know that since independence, that tribal backing has been one of the recipes for the top job.
Here, I had just explained there before. The business corporations which are going to be initiated in every county will offer jobs to Kenyans from the 44 tribes equitably, so that you do not have to hinge on your tribe to get a job. So the only way of undoing that, of undoing this do that we are in, hinging our everything on tribal grounds, is going to come to an end if I am elected the president, and I will induce everybody. I will induce everybody because everybody is a beneficiary. Whatever tribe you may come from, you are a beneficiary, and in a big way. My style is not to undermine anybody. It is not to underrate anybody. My style is different. I will concentrate on my market offerings to Kenyans and let Kenyans choose these tangible market offerings, and they are part and parcel, because it is going to be, it's in its entirety a public participation program. It is a self-centered economic policy in which every member of the community is a beneficiary, is an investor and a beneficiary, irrespective of your height, your education, your everything.
Every electioneering period, we see people, Kenyans, coming up and telling us to vote for them. They present their manifestos to us. One of your pillars is this innovation.
Yes.
How are you going to base your campaign on a subject that has not been tested and proven?
This has been proved, I don't know how many years, because it is a sales promotion.
I understand that.
Yes.
You explained about your small project in Kitengela
yes.
that got affected
yes.
when when your building was brought down, or demolished, and perhaps probably that was the end of it. So how are you going to convince a Kenyan to vote for you, and yet we haven't seen results, leave alone the sales promotion that has always been happening since time immemorial?
Yes.
This just your concept.
Yes.
Telling Kenyans that I tried it in location A, location B, and this is the result, and now all we need to do is upscale it.
We do not have that much time to start reinventing the wheel. This is a sales promotion, upstaged. We all know sales promotions and the way they work. And as long as there is the vehicle product, and as long as everybody is a beneficiary, who has a better concept, who has a better ideology, who has a better something better to offer? Because here we are depending on our personal efforts, and you are not going to do it at any cost whatsoever. It is buying as you have always bought. And somebody has crafted something from that so that it is a saving, it is an investment. Collectively, it's big. Singly, like I attempted, the effects cannot be felt anywhere. And that is why it must be done at national level. Because if we were to do it at county level, first, it will not benefit every Kenyan. Second, the impact will not be big enough. So at national level, and everything is done in broad daylight, with everybody's hand in it, and you are not doing it at any cost to you, then I think my concept outshines others, although that is not my intention. My intention is to give my market offerings to Kenyans and tell them to decide. If you think tribalism is what is going to get you out of the problem, Kenyans, just go ahead. But I advise you to drop it.
Okay. So let's imagine a scenario. We have a president, no disrespect, but let's imagine a scenario where Jacob Kioko is probably president, and we are faced with a pandemic as we are currently. How would you use this to save the country?
The first thing would be to raise funds. And
it has already been raised?
It has all the qualities of raising funds. Once raised, the next immediate thing would be eradication of corruption. Because we can raise the funds, and it will be the equivalent of fetching water with a leaking bucket.
Now, we are in the middle of the pandemic.
Right now.
Yes, is how this innovation would save us from the pandemic.
It cannot save us from the pandemic because there's nothing you can do. It's already with us. But it can salvage that which can be salvaged humanly. That those who have lost jobs are going to get jobs. Because this is creation of jobs. The Ministry of Education is going to have funds to attend to the requirements of the Ministry of Health. Our classrooms are congested, and we need funds immediately to construct more rooms to take up more Kenyans. Now, If every day, we are now about 5 months into the pandemic?
6 months.
6 months into the pandemic.
Yes.
If for the last 6 months, through this innovation, we were collecting, say, 100 million shillings per day, do your calculations and see how many classrooms we would put up in Kibera, in Kajiado, and other places through this effort. Now, parents who cannot place food on their tables for their families will have jobs, because the business, job-creating business corporations will be there. So people will have jobs. Classrooms will be put up. Drugs would be there as long as we ascertain that money is channeled properly. And this innovation will be the savior. It will salvage us from the problems that we are faced with. Now, while we are still there, I said there's going to be a curriculum developed. And since this is the only innovation known to man today that has the capacity of offering the most ideal post-COVID-19 economic stimulus package to the entire human race. If we set up that college, that institution, and induced all the countries of the world to send some of their citizens to Kenya for training on how they are going to rejuvenate their economies. The fee that we collect will be enough money to completely rejuvenate the national economy, and that in the immediate term. So, if this innovation were adopted today, and we all fixed our attention to its success, one of the things we will do is to raise money in the immediate term by inducing the entire world to come for training here. Of course, we will charge them fees.
Okay. You haven't talked about the collection of, the raising of revenue through the collection of taxes. Does it mean that your innovation will get, Kenyans in a situation where they don't need to raise taxes?
Absolutely not.
Or this is just supplementing on
the
what we
do
already have?
innovation will supplement, will run parallel, adjacent, and in full consultation with the conventional economic sector. This is going to be a supplemental economic sector which will supplement government effort, because taxes are going to be collected. There are going to be more now. There's going to be more business activity.
All right.
So that national economic development will thenceforth be financed from two different economic fronts, drawing their revenue from two different economic sources. The conventional economic front being government taxes, the normal government taxes, and then the supplemental economic front also giving it its share, because there will be now more product usage, as a result of which more taxes are now going to be available. Now, how the government uses those taxes should be at that level, government level.
All right. This innovation does not operate in a vacuum. What are some of the factors that influence its how it works? What are these factors? Since it's not something that you are going to just create a room for it to develop and raise this money. It is dependent upon the economic environment, the health of the workforce. It is dependent upon politics as well, political goodwill. So how are you going to ensure that it has a lot of buffers from all corners to protect it?
Now, are you asking me if I were elected the president? Being elected the president.
We are now talking about you
it's simple.
As a president now. How you're going to...
This is very simple. Because it's a question of inducing Kenyans to see sense in sense. Here you are, you want as an individual to grow financially. And you have the free hand of amassing as much wealth as you want, as long as you do it legally.
Okay.
And here is an open hand. Go back to your home village and tell your people, here is something new. We have always bought goods without any additional benefits. But here is a new idea in which whenever you purchase a product, you have that additional benefit. It's not a cost to you. And all that we need is good, proper management. I spoke about the 8 former provinces. And then you go down. At that level, I'm calling my innovation the National Economic Devolution Sector, NEDS. Yeah? At the lower reaches, you have satellite business corporations at village level. Then you have the county economic hubs, the equivalent of the county cities. Not every county can develop its own city due to the financial constraints. But the Dugu Innovation will develop a similar version as the county cities from scratch without involving funds from either the central or the county governments. This is strictly private, but we are supplementing government of effort.
You make it sound so perfect. Is it really perfect, or there are probably some things that come with it, some disadvantages that come with it, those that you have thought about?
As far as I know, because sales promotions have always been there. They have been tested over the time, for as long as humanity has existed. And they have stood the test of time. The only thing that could be an issue would be that human weakness of selfishness and greed. If those two human weaknesses are catered for, and I've just given you an army of three groups,
yes,
and a battlefield of 5, I feel and I believe that those two human weaknesses can be addressed. Once addressed, it may not be overnight, but in due course, they will be addressed, and we are going to be there. Because depending on the law alone, and maybe I may tell you the weaknesses of the law, and especially here. We all agree that corruption has seeped into our Kenyan society to the deepest level. Now, the law is enacted by one section of that corrupt society, and it is enforced by another section of the same corrupt society. Corruption matters are presided over in court by yet another section of the same corrupt society.
That's a very huge allegation.
No, what I'm saying is, well, as far as I know, that our courts are managed and manned by Kenyans. That is what I'm saying. They are manned and managed by Kenyans.
Are we all corrupt?
We may not, but it has seeped into the society. I'm not saying we are all corrupt. No. We are not all corrupt, but the majority of those who do the enacting, the enforcement, and also the general management are Kenyans, and some are not upright. So there is a weakness in the law in that area. And the other thing is the law is reactive. It can only take effect after the crime has taken place, not before. The Dugu innovation will, this time round, address Kenyans before they get into it. So it is reactive. Religion will say no. You are going to be cast with fire and brimstone. Don't get into it. The law cannot say so. It can only threaten punishment, and it does. So there is that weakness. Now, sometimes the law is manipulated. I'm not saying everybody does that, but from the newspapers and discussions in the street, rumor has it that it can be manipulated. I have actually never seen it in practice, but that is the general rumor in society. Now, sorry, if we could address that or those limitations of the law, then we are on a fair way to getting the right thing. Now, using the law alone will not get us anywhere. It is something which must exist in every society. But so far, it needs to be assisted in this effort.
All right. Now, there are so many things to do as a president. You have a country to run, and you have your international relations also to manage. Let's break it down with the couple of minutes that we still have. You have your innovation that you think is the cure for every problem that we have in the country. But there are things that we cannot ignore. We have the three arms of government. We have the executive, we have the legislative, and we also have the judiciary. These are three arms that operate independent of one another, but at the same time, there's supposed to be that symbiotic relationship that they must foster for systems to work. How are you going to ensure that the relationship between these three arms of government is smooth and they are able to operate in a manner that is going to ensure that service is delivered, the laws are enacted in a timely manner, and they are specific to the problems that Kenyans have or to the needs that Kenyans have, and we are going to have a judiciary that is going to speak to the demands of the common Kenyan citizen?
The first thing is to equip the judiciary. I will start with that. Financially, there has been complaints. I don't know whether I may be right, but I have overheard that there could be issues with the financing of the judiciary, and the Dugu innovation will have raised the money. There is also that human weakness of greed and selfishness, and it is going to be effectively addressed by growing the economy. I, as the overseer, let me brand myself that title, I'm the president, I will ascertain that the law is followed as it should be I have no further interest as the president than to see all sections follow the law, and especially by addressing those two human weaknesses which account for a large measure of that which may not be working right, so that our legislature is elected properly. Do you, does everybody qualify as per the law? Is the public informed sufficiently that this is what the law says an MP should be, an MCA should be, a senator should be, and don't take money from them? And anyway, you have already been equipped. So elect those who fit. When it comes to the judiciary, who should be a judge? The necessary organs should check on that. You have been placed here, you are properly paid, you are supposed to do what the law says, and overall, remember Zacchaeus, because without a change in our source, there is nothing you can do. Because the change must start from there. So there is need for one to be prudent. Prudence is not necessarily a religious virtue, but it must be there in one so as to be given this office. And personally, I will make sure I do what is humanly possible to induce the electorate to do the right thing. Civic education is critical.
And how are you planning to address matters of security? Kenya is actively engaged in ensuring that the region is safe from forces such as terror. As president, what will you do to this end?
That is something that I have covered in depth in my innovation. With this kind of funds, which I envisage, and it is possible, we will train our forces better, equip them better, and in due course start manufacturing our own weaponry. I don't know where we get our bullets from. I don't know where we get our guns from.
We manufacture bullets in the
I don't know, but the thing is we can start manufacturing that which our scientists, local scientists, can do properly. So equipping our forces better, remunerating them better, and generally giving them that spiritual rebirth, that this is your country, it's where you are born and reared, it's where your mother is, it's where your child is. Let us go out to do the right thing to this nation, in service to the nation. Service to the nation is service to God.
Now, to what end? Using, let's say, the Al-Shabaab as an example. Exterminate the Al-Shabaab or keep them from our borders?
Whoever crosses our borders, there is no mercy. And that is, as a president, My simple is the spider's web. And what that means is a spider may be considered to be a weak animal, yet he is very strong. Because from time of creation, he has depended on a single tool of trade, the web. He does not expand his territory. He does not steal from anybody. But whoever attacks him in his web, there's war. So a similar application, you cannot go to wherever it is that Al-Shabaab are trained. Nobody has that capacity. But we could have our borders secure because our forces are disciplined, they are well trained, they have the enthusiasm to protect their country, and they are not corrupt.
And what do you plan to do to improve Kenya's position in in international relations, for example?
Yeah, here, if we could induce all the nations of the world to come to send some of their people to Kenya for training, that will be the first step and immediate. Now, this innovation is going to improve the creditworthiness of the country tremendously. So those who will join hands with us will no longer look at us as people who are dependent on their aid, because we will reduce foreign aid to as far as is possible, because we will be able to finance our own development through this innovation, and we have peace with everybody. Once this is spread, replicated in all the countries of the world, Kenya will become a world economic leader long before we develop the capacity for industrial takeoff. And it can be done very easily.
There are a lot of interest when it comes to matters international relations.
Yes.
America has interest in Africa. The British also have interest in Africa. The Russians also have their own interest in Africa. China also have interest in Africa, and we have seen the amount of wealth that the Chinese government has invested in Africa. Kenya has been a beneficiary of that. The Standard Gauge Railway would have not been possible without the Chinese help. How are you going to ensure that we maintain this relationship, but we make it beneficial to us, aside from the training or the benchmarking that you are talking about?
Well, trade is a two-way traffic. There is this international law which says in all regions of the world where internal trade exceeds external trade, there is more social integration, and that is what I'm emphasizing here, and more economic development. Now, once we have had our internal trade put in order, we are not an island. We will buy from whoever it is that produces the best, as they will buy from us. So it is going to be a win-win situation in which develop the railway line. But there's something that I do not agree with you on that without the Chinese funding, the SGR would not have been possible.
Looking at the size of our economy, I believe that my argument is pointing towards the right direction. Our economy right now is at 3 trillion. A couple of years ago, it was slightly below that. And with that size of an economy, you need partners, development partners, to help you improve on your infrastructure.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. But the statement that without, I don't know to what extent, because I believe and very firmly believe that with 50 million Kenyans joining up, teaming up, and with everybody getting a retainer incentive, and those retainer incentives being invested in more business corporations, the money that we would have received from China would have been much less. Not that we want to sever our relations with anybody. Absolutely not.
Okay.
But we would want to be respected because we would be seen to be doing something, not to sit for others to come and help us. That is the point I'm driving at. We have got to be seen, and nobody's going to live for you. You will have to live for yourself. And without, severing relations in any way with anybody, you have got to, it's just like in your home. You don't have to sit until, the villagers come to help you. You do something. When villagers bring in their help, you will be at some level. That is the point I'm driving at.
So, as we wind up, let me understand the figures. Our economy, our budget is estimated at 3 trillion right now. 316.5 of that going, 316.5 billion of that going to the counties. With your innovation, how much are we looking at?
In fact, if this is given, it cannot happen tomorrow. But if this is given only a few years, say 5 years, for example, almost nearly the 316 will be collected at county level, with every county having an economic hub, the equivalent of the county cities. There is absolutely no reason as to why we should not be able to collect that and then release the national government to do with other national matters.
I'm still waiting for the figure, because the government will tell you that in the next financial year, we plan on raising, let's say, for example, 1 trillion from value-added tax. We plan on raising 500 billion from such an area. We plan on raising another 500 billion from this and that. So practically, how are we? What are these products probably that you have looked into and considered as the hot cakes, for example, that are going to probably give you the bulk of this money?
The first project would be the development of that curriculum. Then induce all the countries of the world. We have about 200 or so countries to send some of their people for training, because this is the only way of the world, not Kenya, the only valid post-COVID-19 economic stimulus package for the benefit of humanity. So the first step would be to induce them. If, for example, they bring in 100 people for training, and if we charge them, say, $500,000 per student for the course, I don't know how much that calculates to. You must do it on paper, because we can, even if we are not going to raise the 316, we can raise at least half of that 316, and that will be a big leap forward.
All right. Thank you very much, Jacob Kioko. A very complex but an ambitious innovation that you have. Of course, I wish you the best. Are you planning to vie as an independent candidate, or you have identified a political party?
Yes. No, I'm going to go independent.
An independent candidate.
Yeah.
You have settled on a running mate?
Not yet.
Are you probably thinking that this running mate should be a woman because the talk of 2/3 gender rule is with us right now?
No, I have not made a decision as yet, but what I need is an able person.
An able person.
An able Kenyan.
This able Kenyan should be able to buy into your idea, I suppose.
Yeah, precisely. One must buy into the idea, and we work together. Not necessarily, you cannot fix yourself on a woman and a woman when you may not get the right candidate. So the thing is, a Kenyan, an able Kenyan, who is willing to work with me and who is willing to uplift the standards of Kenyans and the level of development of the country.
What is it that you do right now?
Well, I run a school, Kitengela, primary school.
A primary
private.
school?
Yeah, private. Primary school.
Is it from what level to what level?
We have existed for the last 16 years, so we have all levels.
Up to class 8?
Class 8, we have, I think, close to now 10 exams or something.
All right, and you have online classes as well right now?
Yes, from preschool.
How is it working out for you?
Yeah, it has been doing very well. We have been actually leaders. At one time, 2015 is our benchmark year.
Right.
We produced the best candidate in the country. And we have been doing well. We work hard.
What kind of pool of parents are you dealing with? Are they parents who bought into the idea of what you're trying to achieve, and are they responding very well?
Yes, they have. They have been. Every time we have a parents' meeting, this idea, and they demand it. How far have you gone?
Okay. How many students do you have?
It's close to 500, to be exact, 468.
All right. In terms of school fees, how much does it cost per year for one student?
Depending on the class.
So let's use.
But the highest is 20,000 shillings.
20,000 shillings.
Yeah, and the lowest is 14.
If you compare the situation before COVID and the situation now, I know that the private sector has really taken a huge hit from this. Yeah. Is the situation going to go back to normal? Should the government open schools, or you're projecting a situation where probably things would have to change?
I think we cannot be too optimistic because parents have lost jobs. Some parents have lost jobs. And it's a question of waiting and see, really, because the entire spectrum of private schools,
yes.
Some parents may opt to go to government schools because of the hardship that they have at home. I'm not quite sure, but we are waiting to see.
And does that scare you as an investor?
It would scare every investor when the economy goes down. Even the hugest are affected. So there's need to take action. Part of the action is here.
How many teachers have you employed?
35.
Are you paying all of them right now?
No.
Not
unfortunately, I cannot.
And how about those ones who are currently running the online learning platform?
Yeah, parents contribute to that.
How much?
Well, we are charging 2,000.
This is per month, or this is per lesson?
No. They cannot afford it. it is. We are doing that per month.
Per month. All parents are paying?
Not everybody is. Not everybody is.
So the ones who are not paying don't get to have their children sit in these online classes?
What we are doing actually is we are buying exams. Yeah, it's cheaper for us,
right?
And the kind of money that parents are able to raise, and everybody is taken on board.
All right. Thank you very much, Jacob Kyoko. I wish you the very best in your presidential ambitions. And that does it for us for this edition of News Check. My name is Edward Kabasa. Do keep it here. Timothy Kipnusu is coming up next with Tambrini. Asante sana.